Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'd like to call to order this workshop of the Lake County School Board here on this fine Monday, July 31st, 2023 afternoon. We will actually defer the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence to our meeting that will immediately follow this particular one. So with that, we'll jump right into our topics, as I don't have any public input cards. And the first topic on our agenda tonight is a charter application. Sabrina, I think that it's probably going to be you taking that away, right? All right, excellent.
Well, good afternoon, early evening, Chairman, Superintendent, board members, and members of the audience. Today, I'm here to present the findings of the evaluation of Mater application for a replication of a high-performing charter school. We just practiced this and it worked, I promise. There we go. So before I jump into the presentation, board members, I do want to call your attention to the items that were placed in board docs for your review. You had copies of the questions from the capacity interview, as well as the completed evaluation instrument. So as I stated, Mater Academy, Mount Dora High School is a high-performing replication charter school, and that is the information for the school that the school is attempting to replicate. Oh, I'm gonna get it right. There we go. So there is the statute about high-performing charter school systems, and a high-performing charter school system means that it's an entity that has operated in the last 3 years with the high-performing charter schools in the state during each of the previous years. It has operated a system of charter schools in which at least 50% of the charter schools were high-performing pursuant to statute, and that no charter school had a grade of D or F in the previous years. Also, if the entity assumes operation of a public school pursuant to the statute with the grade of F, that school's grade may not be considered part of determining the high-performing against the charter school. This is a statute that you've seen multiple times this school year about charter schools and what a sponsor's responsibility is, and that we shall receive applications from charter schools using the evaluation instrument provided by the state, and that by a majority vote, we shall approve or deny no later than 90 calendar days after receiving the application, unless the sponsor and the applicant has mutually agreed in writing to temporarily postpone the vote, at which time the sponsor shall, by majority vote, again, approve or deny the application. And if the sponsor fails to do that, the application may be appealed by the State Board of Education. And if an application is denied, the sponsor shall, within 10 days, provide such denial in writing and the reason specific for those, that recommendation for a denial. Again, that's another statute that we've seen multiple times this year about what charter schools shall fulfill. And the purposes, again, is to improve student learning, academic achievement, increase learning opportunities for students, encourage the use of innovative learning methods, and require the measurements of learning outcomes. And charters also may fulfill the following: creative, innovative measurement tools, provide rigorous competition to stimulate continual improvement, expand the capacity of the public school system, and mitigate the educational impacts of new developments, and create new professional development opportunities for teachers. And the charter authorization application process, again, is another slide you've seen previous this school year about the approving or denying application, and the sponsor shall allow any applicant upon the receipt of a notification at least 7 days to make any technical or non-substantive changes or clarifications to their application. And those are the items that are considered non-substantive and technical, and then the other items are what we would consider to be substantive issues within the application. And this particular statute pertains to this application that we have received, and it's the high-performing charter school application. And it talks that it states that an application submitted by a high-performing charter school identified in statute 1002.331 or a high-performing charter school system identified in Statute 1002.332 may only be denied by the sponsor if it demonstrates a clear and convincing evidence that the application of a high-performing charter school does not materially comply with the requirements in paragraph, or for a high-performing charter school system, the application does not materially comply with 1002.332, Section B. The charter school proposed in the application does not materially comply with requirements in paragraphs 9, subsection 9A through F. The proposed charter school's educational program does not substantially replicate that of an applicant or one of the applicant's high-performing charter schools. The applicant has made a material misrepresentation or a false statement or concealed an essential or material fact during the application process, or the proposed charter school's educational program and financing management practices do not comply with the requirements in this section. And the high-performing application section continue. If the sponsor chooses to deny the application by a high-performing charter school or a high-performing charter school system, the sponsor must, within 10 calendar days after such denial, state in writing the specific reasons based on the criteria in subsection B supporting its denial of the application, and must provide the letter of denial and supporting documentation to the applicant and the Department of Education. The applicant may appeal the sponsor's denial of the application in accordance with paragraph C of Statute 1002.33, Section 8. So here's our application timeline. You will see that we received the application for Matter on February 10th. The capacity interview was held on April 27th, along with the Charter Review Committee's review of the application on April 27th. We are here at the workshop today, and we will be bringing the application to the board for your vote on August 14th. We are outside of our 90 days, but we did have an extension to go beyond the 90 days for the bringing this to workshop. So we are in compliance with law there. So before I jump into the findings, I wanted you to be aware that we have members from Mater here with us as well. They're in the audience, should you have questions for them after the presentation, as well as some of the committee members that were that participated in the review. The Model Florida Charter Application System High-Performing Charter Replication Evaluate Instrument is the instrument that we used for this particular application, again, because it's a high-performing replication. Each section represents criteria for a response that meets the standard, and these criteria should guide the overall ratings for each section. The rationale for each rating is important, especially if some of the data or evidence does not fit neatly into the provided sections. And these will be the sections that the committee reviewed and rated. And you've seen this slide before. The following definitions should guide the ratings. Again, meets the standards. It means the response reflects a thorough understanding of key issues and demonstrates capacity to open and operate a quality charter school. It addresses the topic with specific and accurate information that shows thorough preparation and presents a clear, realistic picture of how the school expects to operate. Partially meets the standard. The response addresses most of the criteria, but the response lacks meaningful detail and requires important additional information. And does not meet the standard. The response lacks meaningful detail, demonstrates lack of preparation, or otherwise raises substantial concerns about the applicant's understanding of the issue in concepts or ability to meet the requirement in practice. Authorizers are encouraged to align their application review process with the Florida principles and standard for quality authorizing, in which we do. Our process does align to that. So now we will look at the evaluation instrument for the overall assessment by the committee. And you will see for the indicators and standards as referenced in the evaluation instrument. First section is replication overview. We had 14, all 14 members rated that as meet the standards. Mission, guiding principles, and purpose. meets the standard, all 14. Educational program, curriculum, and instructional design, all 14, meets the standards. Student performance, assessment, and evaluation, all 14 members, meets the standards. Student recruitment and enrollment, all 14 members, meets the standard. Management and staffing, all 14 members, meets the standard. Facilities, 14. Transportation service, 14. Food service, 14. School safety and security, all 14 members, rated meets the standards. Budget, all 14 members. Financial management and oversight, all 14 members. And in the addendum for educational service providers, all 14 members. There were some notes that I would like to call your attention to, some strengths of the application: student performance and assessment and evaluation. Plan calls for schools who follow district assessment calendar. Plan calls for a wide variety of assessment. And the plan calls for participation in progress monitoring with plans to use data in an instructional manner for student growth. There was two comments from finance. The starting teacher salary is a little bit below Lake County Schools, and there was no garbage or natural gas expenditures listed. Although neither of these would be significant enough to warrant denial, it is still questionable by the Finance Department. So the overall assessment from the committee is to recommend to the superintendent the approval of this application. Are there any questions for me, the committee, or we have
I don't
individuals
see any
here again
questions for
from
our
Rita?
staff. How about any questions for Matters group there? No?
I wouldn't mind two answers to those questions from finance if they could. The 47.5 versus the 48, and then those other expenditures. Just think they're worth mentioning.
Yes.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Idalia Suarez. I am a governing board member for Matter Academy, Inc. As for the expenditures, in the time of application, they use a specific number, but when we go to a neighboring school district, we always like to be competitive, and we match, the pay scale of whatever school district we're in. So it's a guarantee that we can say that we would be matching the starting salary of Lake County.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.
Well, there was a second question.
Oh,
Could
okay.
you address that?
Natural
I'm still
gas.
here.
The one about the garbage and natural gas.
Absolutely. If that's something that the school would have to fold into the expenditures, it will. Thankfully now we have additional capital outlay dollars that will support, those expenses when it comes to like buildings and facilities. So anything that the school is required to do, we're committed to do so.
There are some situations where gas may not even be available, and it may be an electric kitchen. We're mainly talking about the kitchen.
Right. We every school pays their utilities. Every single school.
And you could just send the garbage home little by little and each could track it,
No,
right?
no.
Okay.
We won't
Pack
do
it
that
in,
to our
pack it out.
children, no.
I'll save you some money. All right. Any other questions? All right. We appreciate that very much. So it looks like this will be on our agenda of the meeting of August 14th.
Okay, thank you. It's a
right.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. I think we'll transition next into our capital plan review. And I imagine Kelly Randall, there she is, will be coming forward to give us some insight as to what we might expect over the next 5 years.
All right. Mind bringing it, there we go. All right, board members, superintendent, it's good to see everybody. Here we are again. It feels like I just did this. So this is our capital plan. Just, unlike Sabrina, I did not practice this. Down arrow. All right, just a reminder, per our interlocal agreement with our local jurisdictions, we are to provide them with a final draft by August 15th and adopt by September 15th. I know you know this very well. These are our funding sources for the capital plan, our ad valorem, which basically pays for most of the recurring expenditures, impact fees, which can only be used for new capacity, and the sales tax proceeds, which have been promised to the voters of Lake County that we will use to replace some of our oldest schools and buildings. So some of the challenges that we're seeing still, inflation, supply chain issues, and labor shortages. I think that the costs have kind of stabilized a little bit, but we are still seeing some increases in some areas, equipment, chillers and netgear specifically, netgear, switchgear, specifically seem to be the most difficult supply chain issues. And there's still some unpredictability in the market. We are also seeing some increased demands on our local capital outlay because that is our most flexible funding source. And some of the other things is we're seeing issues with cash flow, just making sure that we have enough money for those projects in the years that we plan to do those projects. And I'll kind of show you how that's affecting some of the projects as we move along. As always, our goals are to set realistic revenue projections for the plan. We tend to be conservative, as you know. I would rather under-project our revenue than over-project it. And I want to give a little shout out to Carlos Jimenez in finance. He is our new capital accountant, and he has dived in and really put a lot of work into just this part of it and understanding the capital. So he has been a bonus to work with. We always want to maintain stable spending on our annual expenditures, try to adjust those budget increases for new projects, and try very hard to keep all new projects and modernizations funded in the same year. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the plan. So what are we seeing for revenue? There is a continued increase in property tax revenue. It's fairly stable, a pretty regular increase as we move along, and a lot of that is due to, the new growth that we're seeing in the county. Impact fees, thank goodness, they have been renewed by our BCC. And so we have projected an increase. Again, I tend to be conservative with this. They are, responsive to the market. So depending on what the market is doing, that's what's going to happen with our impact fees. So we did show an increase, but a fairly modest increase. Of course, if we have a good year, then that's reflected in the carryover the next year. And so we capture that again. We have been collecting proportionate share mitigation for 3 areas. We, right now, are just collecting proportionate share mitigation for that South County High School area. The other 2 have been the North County High School and the Leesburg Area Elementary School have been addressed with projects. But there is some funding that will come through from prior approved proportionate share mitigation agreements. The sales tax revenue tends to be fairly stable. There's modest increases every year, but nothing dramatic. No change to the state funding. We are not seeing any PICO dollars, and we get modest amounts of CO&DS money. So the total revenue projected includes, is about $595 million. That includes $64 million in carryover. Of course, on a pay-as-you-go plan, we're always going to have carryover because we're saving up that money for projects. This is the revenue projections page. If anybody has any questions on it, I can go ahead and answer them as we go. No? All right, we'll move on. Ongoing expenditures. So here's where we see some of the stresses on our capital millage outlay. We have added the required share with charter schools. Right now, I'm going to blame it on Scott. He has estimated it at $300,000 per year, increasing by $300,000 per year throughout the plan. So I think we will see how that goes as we move along and we kind of understand what our charter school numbers are and our responsibility to share with them. Capital staff transfer, as you know, there's been a lot of staff because we have so many more projects for facilities, maintenance, and code compliance staff. That staff transfer has been increased. It was $250,000. I've now increased it to $1 million annually to help pay for that staff that's building these projects. One of the things when portables were moved from maintenance to facilities, there was no budget for that. And so I've added a portable installation line that's funded at $875,000 annually. So we will see, that's also a way for us to track what we're putting in portables. This year, we are spending about $2 million in portables, and that was not necessarily budgeted. It's coming out of maintenance budgets. So this is a way for us to understand how much we are spending in portables. And then after discussions with Alex Hankey and with Dwayne Weeks, I have added a line for $1.25 million annually for safety and security infrastructure. That is servers, server upgrades, a lot of the switchgear that they need for their safety and security infrastructure. I'm sure the guys in the back could probably explain it a whole lot better than I can. But I have been assured that this is something that we need in order to make sure that our systems are secure and that we are adequately supporting our camera systems and making sure that we have the ability to record everything that we have. So again, this is the ongoing expenditures line. If there's any questions on that particular item, we can answer them now. No? All right.
We're saving them for the good stuff here.
For the good stuff, and
Projects.
is good stuff. Anybody who is at Aurelia Cole knows that this is the fun stuff. So these are our new projects that we have funded through the plan. The Mineola area relief is fully funded. We are working through that. It is planned to open in 2025. It will basically be the same school as Aurelia Cole. So it should be a very nice school. There are two projects to build permanent capacity, to replace portables and increase our concurrency capacity. Those have been in the plan. It's the Villages Elementary addition that'll replace those portables in the back and increase their capacity a little bit. And then the Windy Hill Middle School addition, which will replace the many portables that are at Windy Hill and allow for some growth coming out of the Wellness Way area that we expect to see. And then we are continuing building that funding for the South County High School as we go. My personal goal is to have that funded just outside of this plan, and so we'll see how I do.
So the sixth year, if we took this column out one more,
That's going to be my goal.
All
But
right.
of course, the costs keep rising. And so, that goal, it's like when you're teaching a little kid how to swim and you just keep moving farther and farther away. So,
well, honestly, I'm impressed that you were able to find and identify this much funding within the next 5 years for that.
yes,
So-
yeah. So we'll see how we do. We're gonna keep working through that. And I really think that we need to set that as a goal because I think that those students are coming sooner rather than later. And we're gonna need that high school fairly quickly. So that's our impact fee funding. The Mineola area relief, I just want to give you a few updates on where we are on some of these projects. We are working through the final site acquisition agreements. James and I had a flurry of emails back and forth today with the developer, trying to work through that. Our civil engineer and the architect are finalizing the plans for it, and so hopefully we should be good to start getting underway here pretty quickly. We hope to have a site work and a long lead package GMP to you relatively soon. The Okay, so that is the one major thing. We will be putting out the RFQ for the Villages addition to the for an architect, or actually a prototype addition here relatively soon, within the next month or two. And then we'll be moving forward with that project. Sales tax projects, the Fruitland Park Elementary replacement. We'll talk about that on the next slide. Beverly Shores renovation, that RFQ should be published relatively soon. I just talked to Ollie on my way over here today. And so that should be going. The rest of the projects, Eustis Elementary School is fully funded. The Eustis High addition, it is the Eustis High addition and the Oak Park Middle School, Leesburg K-8 conversion got caught up in some of that cash flow issue that we were talking about. Basically, I was relying on funding from the ad valorem in order to make up a funding gap for the Eustis High addition. Because of that additional stress on the ad valorem, it ended up being pushed out for a year. I did not change the timeline for opening, because I think that with some increased revenue, of course, we tend to be conservative, with some increased revenue, that actually could get picked back up. And so I think we'll see in the next 3 years that I'm actually able to pull that forward again. And I think we can stay on track with it. But it just kind of created a really small funding gap in the third year, and so it ended up getting pushed out. So if anybody has any questions on that.
Kelly, on these, would all of these, in your opinion, qualify for some impact fee capacity funding?
So all of them qualify for a little bit, except for Beverly Shores. Beverly Shores, we are not necessarily adding any capacity that I would consider to qualify for impact
But
fees.
we certainly are in Fruitland Park.
But at
South
Fruitland
Leesburg,
Park, and
Treadway
actually
area.
Fruitland Park, I think I have relied on a little bit of impact fee funding, Eustis Elementary and the Eustis High. Oak Park, probably the conversion to the K-8 probably would not qualify for impact fees. So where I can, then we can use a little bit of impact fee funding for that. And then Treadway Elementary has finally moved into the 5th year of the plan. They are partially funded. So hopefully, as long as everything keeps on track, we'll be fully funded next year. All right, the Fruitland Park Elementary School replacement. This is our basic design. Don't get too wrapped up in this, because there are probably some cost-cutting things that will happen. So, don't take this for gospel. We have, as we've discussed, or I've discussed with some of you, there are some timing issues. We got a late start with the RFQ, and the lead times for materials have not gotten any better. So chillers are a year out. Switchgear is generally about a year out. And so, unfortunately, we are not going to make that August of 2024 deadline or opening. And so we are looking at a Christmas opening, basically opening them in January of 2025. Kids will have a place to sit, they will have a classroom, teachers will have a classroom, but we would end up moving them over. And unfortunately, what that also does is because we are looking at using Beverly Shores as a swing school, I think I've said this multiple times wrong. Because we've looked at using the old Fruitland Park campus as a swing school for Beverly Shores in order to make construction there easier, then that actually pushes Beverly Shores back by a year. So it is not the news I wanted to share with you, but it is the news I have to share with you, unfortunately. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? All right. But when we do open Fruitland Park Elementary, I think it's going to be a really exciting school for those students. It's a really neat design. I think some of the things that we've heard about are 2007 elementary schools, the Grassy Lake, the Sorrentos. We've addressed, there's a nice secure area for the kids to get outside and learn. And I think it's a much more kind of community-focused school. So we're really excited about this, and you'll see more. As we said, we're working through some of those kind of cost-cutting programs that we're going to have to address in order to keep that on budget. And so it won't look exactly like what you saw, but the basic footprint design will be very similar. So we're really excited about that one.
So I have a question. The outside classroom, I'm assuming that's the area here in the front of the building? Possibly?
It is actually, I don't know if that works.
Is that the front of the building?
Oh, it doesn't work so well. In the front is sorry. The blue area in the front is the admin office. The red is the cafeteria. As you go through, there's actually, in that center corridor has the kind of science skills lab area. It has art, it has music, and then off of that, there's actually a courtyard area that becomes kind of an outdoor learning area. We can open it up, they can take kids out to do science experiments and that kind of thing. And then the media center is in the
Okay.
middle.
So
and
it's
has-
not in the front, in the open?
Oh, good Lord, no.
Okay, that's what I thought.
No, it's a very secure area there in the middle. And so I think it's going to be kind of neat. One of the things that we saw and we heard at Fruitland Park was that they use a lot of their outdoor space and they like to be outdoors. And of course, we heard the opposite about, Sorrento and Grassy Lake and those schools, is that while they're very nice and compact, there's no place for the kids to go outside and learn,
It's true.
They're either, so you know that from Sorrento. So this is an attempt to give them that outdoor space that they like, but in a very secure way. All right. So the other things that we have in there are the modernization and capital renewal projects. We keep moving along there. Facilities picked those up last year. We have been working through them. We have had architectural assessments completed, and at this point, we are prioritizing the improvements that we're going to make based on the funding that we have available. Astula and South Lake High School are funded for this year, so we'll be starting that process, and we'll move through those as we go. We also added, last year, there was some funding to be determined in the 24-25 year. I've actually added Beverly Shores and Villages for modernization so that when we do the renovation and the addition, we aren't leaving the older buildings there untouched. We'll go in, they'll become equitable with the new facilities that we build there. And they actually just kind of rolled in time-wise at about the right thing, so it seemed to make sense. The funding adjusted to 1 year for each project. That was, at one point, they were all broken up, so they are still good. And then the last 2 years, the locations are still to be determined pending assessments of those facilities. One of the exciting projects that we're working on is based on local capital outlay funding, which is why you didn't see it before. This is the Lincoln Park Education Center. We are concentrating on the high school portion, which is actually it would be the right-hand side of this, old Building 18 and Building 5. This is kind of a long-term master plan for the whole site, including the areas that Lake Tech would be taking over, and then looking at the last two buildings on what would be the south side for district offices. But again, we are concentrating on what we need to have ready for the high school to open in next fall. And then, whoops. This is basically what it looks like. We're taking Building 18, which is the 8 classrooms, kind of in the upper right corner, and minimal conversion there, but adding technical or computer skills labs in the middle, where right now there's planning areas, adding a science classroom that will have high school science amenities, an outdoor dining area, a small food service prep, and then converting Building 5 into offices. And so it's compact, it's, relatively inexpensive, but it does provide all of those kind of high school amenities that we're looking for, and it should look really nice. So we like that.
Is there an indoor dining space as well?
There is not an indoor dining space. It is, if you see it, it is surrounded on three sides by walls. It's covered, canopied. And then there's actually a kind of partial wall that's got, it's a low knee wall, and then it's got, I don't want to call it fancy fence, fancy fence up above it. So it's kind of partially enclosed, mostly open. But it would be outdoor by most things.
And how many kids do we expect will be on the campus for lunch?
We've had a long conversation about that because, of course, with the two shifts,
right.
I honestly think a lot of kids will probably not be eating there. So we have 80 kids at a time expected in each shift. And so, I don't know exactly how many will actually eat on campus.
Yeah, I was kind of tracking along with you on that, but I guess thinking about, those random days where it gets to be like 20 degrees here, or those
Yeah.
other random days where it gets to be like 107.
Yeah.
I wonder if there wouldn't be some perk somewhere to have at least a small space where somebody could escape the elements, or
So, we've
torrential
talked
rain.
when we first talked to food service about it, they actually were like, we can feed in the classrooms if we
right.
need to.
Okay.
We'll have LVT in the classroom, so it'll be easy to clean up. If they absolutely have to, in those situations, then they can eat in the classrooms. I will tell you, it added about $2 million to do a full enclosed dining area. So that was unfortunately one of the things that had to give. So
There was no compromise, maybe a not so nice, maybe $1 million inside
That's right, that's right.
well, I will tell you, I already had to increase the budget for this project. So
Well,
it was pretty much at the limit of what I could do.
But I think you're accurate to think that most kids are probably not going to be eating on campus, but, in those, and perhaps most days, the outdoor surrounded on three sides would probably be adequate, but I'm thinking
Yeah.
about those exceptional days that where somebody just wants to get a roof over their, like a structural roof over their head, and-
Well, they will have a roof over
But-
their head. It's fully canopied, it'll have
We
fans,
like
so,
it.
it'll cool down. I think, and then honestly, there's only one side that's really exposed to the elements, so I think the rain will be
Yeah.
minimal. Cold days, we'll have to have coffee or something
Okay.
to warm them up. They'll be back in those classrooms quickly.
You've spoken more recently with Lake Tech as y'all been planning and looking at the design. I know that part of their long-term plan was to use the existing kitchen and to have a culinary program that would provide some dining area similar to what they have here.
Okay.
At the
Right.
Eustis site. So that was kind of under their portion, so hopefully there would be that opportunity as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
partner with the dining space? Mm-hmm. Okay. all right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ever kind of changing and progressing thing, but this was, a good start for the first year.
Sure, okay, I understand.
So some other projects that are in the capital plan, just kind of little projects. There's still some funding for high school athletic facility projects, about $500,000. The high school turf replacement is still funded at $250,000 annually, and there's $650,000 for covered walkways at various locations still in this year. Land acquisition priorities, the ever perpetual Wellness Way needs. We have been back and forth with the with the developer on those sites, but we have draft contracts, and so hopefully we'll be able to finalize those. They are still working through some zoning issues as well, so we are working through those. And then kind of in the outer years, in the future, we are always looking for and talking to developers as they come through about sites for elementary or K-8 and a future high school site, kind of in that north, I call it North Groveland, South Leesburg, West Howie area, where there's quite a number of units projected to go in the next couple of years. So on the work plan, again, these are our work plan. I will point out that when we first funded the Claremont Center, which is now Lincoln Park Ed Center, we didn't really quite know what the scope of the project was going to be, and so I had funded it at $4 million. Now that we have a better idea and we understand we're going to put some district offices in there, then I have increased that to by another 3.9 million, so 7.9 million total. And I think that is probably all of the highlights, so any questions?
So I'm just kind of thinking about our debt. 2031, is that the magic year we become debt-free?
2032?
31, 32. So that's just a few columns away on this.
It really is.
And that's pretty exciting to think that we're getting that close, that you're able to, one, find a sizable portion of funding for the high school, because that's what kind of had me anxious that we may lose that no debt streak. So
Right,
I'm
right.
really excited to see that intact. And three
Yeah.
columns away, and that gets us $18 million more a year, right? So,
Yes,
good.
something like
Good
that,
work.
maybe a little bit more. As long as there are no other projects that come in, that we have to, that have to go in there. And then,
Right.
and the other thing that kind of struck me is that, our 15-year sales tax is up around the same time. And so, right at the end of this plan in 5 years, then we really need to be thinking about what that looks like, because we'll need to go back out to the voters and see what our priorities are at that point.
yeah.
So,
It's much easier to do that when you can say you've been good stewards of their tax money, so.
yes, it is.
Oh, yes, Molly, please.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I do think it was very good work. And you and I have spoken about this, but I just want to state it for the record, because we do have some constituents that are very concerned. With the Eustis High addition, they are extremely concerned about what's going to happen to the Kurt Wright Center. So I would just say that perhaps, those discussions need to start happening sooner. And you and I have talked about this rather
Yes.
than later, because they do have some very serious concerns about it always remaining a school. And I'd like to just personally thank you on behalf of Beverly Shores. I don't know if you're aware of the joke about Beverly Shores, but most people always considered it the movie set school, because the front of the school is very well done, but then when you get in the back, it's like, you step off the stage or the set. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your efforts there.
We are looking forward to working with that. They are
They're excited.
a small and passionate school, and they have some exciting ideas. So
sure they
I think just
Good luck.
working through that design is going to be a lot of fun for us. So, all right,
All
is
right.
that it?
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank
Well
you.
done. All right, we've got one more topic on our agenda this evening, afternoon, whatever we call this awkward period of the day. 3.03 superintendent contract discussion. I know, Tyler, I think you specifically called this one out as an item based on the superintendent's most recent performance evaluations that have all proved very stellar for us to go back and revisit and look at that contract. I think historically, the board has charged the chair or somebody to kind of go negotiate and then bring something back to the board. If you all are open to continuing that process, and be happy to do that, but, of course, I can't talk to you all individually outside this public meeting, so if there are items or considerations that you would.
I just thought it was the appropriate time to bring it up. In the short time I've been here, I just think the superintendent's continued to do a great job. I can spout all the numbers again. 61 out of 67 superintendents are 3 years or less. She got a 371, I think, out of 375, which is a 99% on her review. I personally want to keep her as long as we can and know that she hasn't had a significant raise since she got here 6.5 years ago, has been very mindful and thoughtful about taking care of everyone else, and I just think it's now time that we take care of her. So Mr. Ward and I have had some conversations just with benchmarking some other superintendents. We've got a lot of good data since a lot of these superintendents have become new. So we've got that data. We've got some city manager data. We've got some local, other county official data, and a lot of which are making the same, if not more, than the superintendent. So I just think it's time for a discussion. Again, she's the largest employer in the county. We are the economic engine of this county and just want to make sure she's taken care of. So she's here as long as possible. So just wanted to bring it forward for discussion. And however you guys want to move forward, either the chair takes over those discussions or whatever, I'm game for. But just think it's long overdue to have it.
Very good thoughts. I only have one.
Yeah.
And I 100% support Mr. Dodd, you working with the superintendent. But I just want to put this one out there, that, and also doing research, it came to mind that Marion County, that they've addressed how to terminate a superintendent. And instead of just majority, they have gone to a supermajority. So I'd like for us to make sure that that's, number one, legal. But I also think particularly, well, not today, because that's not an issue, but as a legacy builder, that it would, I think it would enhance people to apply for employment in Lake County.
Wholeheartedly.
I wrote it down.
And I concur, Mr. Chairman. I have no doubt that you're capable and you could negotiate those for us. So I certainly would be willing to ask you to move forward with that. And I also support the supermajority in order to.
All right, so I'll set up a time to meet with you and Scott, you as well, and you can pass along some of the data and information. I know you've done some analysis on what our employees have received as a pay increase over time, and that will help kind of benchmark as well to ensure we're not out of line one way or the other. All right, very good.
Very good.
With that, concludes our topics for this afternoon. Board member comments, if you all have anything before our 5:05 meeting.
No, sir.
Welcome to presenting now.
I have none now or at 5:05.
Okay.
We've got some time, so I'll take it now. It's quick. Just want to give a shout out to the Education Foundation for a wonderful Stepping Out for Education this weekend. I was a participant. I still wouldn't call myself a dancer, but I did participate in the event. Had a great time, and I know the Education Foundation raised over $84,000 this year, which is a smashing record off that event. So kudos to Carmen and Casey and Amber and the entire team at the Ed Foundation for another fantastic event.
Yeah, this workshop went a little faster than I thought, but, it looks like we've got some time if you'd like to showcase your
No,
skills.
to that next thought, any of you fine folks are more than willing to do the next up. Superintendent's done it, I've now done it, either another board member, some of our senior staff, or anyone. We need somebody else to step up next year. Mr. Mathias, I think you'd be great.
I've already made my call to Carmen, and it absolutely will not be doing that.
But that's all I've got.
All right, thank you very much. Molly, do you have anything for this one? All right, I don't as well. Superintendent, do you have any comments specific to this?
I don't, I just echo your sentiments and thank you for, truly, the name is so appropriate, stepping out of your box. It's yeah, it puts you out there, doesn't it?
It does,
You
certainly. It was
you
fun.
did amazing.
But I'm glad I never have to do it again. It's a win-win.
You did great, and thank you for doing that for our kids.
I feel like I've read in the Hunger Games books that, after, I don't know how I'm comparing this, but maybe it's largely similar. But, every so often they invite all of the previous winners and contestants back, right, into the arena.
Invite the
again.
winners back, and I was not a winner, so I am not coming back. Superintendent will be coming back as a winner.
You're a winner in our books. Well done, well done. Thank you. James, anything from the attorney side?
I've got nothing.
All right, well, not seeing any objection to adjourning. We are adjourned, and we'll see you back at 5:05.